See if this sounds familiar. You're doing the work. You're healing. You're finding your footing. Some days are starting to feel really, really good. You're starting to believe, I got this. Life is gonna be okay. And then your ex shows up and it evaporates in about 4 seconds. This doesn't mean that the work you're doing isn't working, but that's only part of the rebuilding. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and if you are watching on video, you are watching my hair getting very, very long because I didn't pre-book my hair appointment and I got another month to go. So this should be almost back to COVID days when we couldn't go get our hair cut. But I hope you are enjoying the new grown out look. Today, we are talking about something that I hear constantly and something that I have lived personally. It is a daily challenge. Challenge is the wrong word. It's a daily opportunity to learn how to live and co-create with other people in a way that doesn't steal your passion. See if this sounds familiar. You're doing the work. You're healing. You're finding your footing. Some days are starting to feel really, really good. You're starting to believe, I got this. Life is going to be okay on the side of this huge transformation. And then your ex shows up and it evaporates in about 4 seconds. This doesn't mean that the work you're doing isn't working. It is, but that's only part of the rebuilding. Divorce is a 2-layer problem, especially when there's kids and you have to continue to work with your ex. So today we're going to talk about both those layers and what you can do about them. I was talking with a client recently and she shared how hard it is to maintain her emotions when she has to deal with her ex. She said she gets triggered so easily and she doesn't understand why because she's been doing the work, right? She's been meditating. She's been doing the breath work. She's been journaling. She's been releasing all of those past resentments. She was finding her balance. And then she said the thing that I know that every single one of you has felt. I thought I was good. And then boom, I was angry. I was snapping back. I was anything but the neutral woman I had every intention of being. And isn't that just so damn annoying when those pesky emotions show back up and make it seem like you haven't moved on? I want to start here because I think we need to stop acting like that moment means the work isn't working. It doesn't mean that. It means that you've discovered the second layer, and most people don't even know that there are 2 different layers of self-exploration. Here's what I know to be true. There are 2 distinct layers of work when you're navigating divorce and co-parenting. The first layer is individual. Who am I now that I am no longer a wife? Who do I want to be in this next chapter? It's a lot about figuring out who you are, what do you like, what's important to you. We talk about finding your frequency or your vibe, right? How do you want to show up? What do you want to wear? How do you want to style your hair? What's your favorite meal? All of those things get a redo, get a revisit, and you get to start to write your own rules. It's a time of getting clear on who you are outside of the relationship, outside of the anger, outside of the grief, learning what it feels like to be regulated, grounded in your own body, in control of your feelings, in love with who you are, and a true understanding that you are worthy of good things. It's the work most coaches talk about. You can pull up any divorce account and they're going to talk to you about boundaries, worthiness, learning to speak your truth, claiming who you are. And it's absolutely real and necessary. But there is a second layer, and very few people are actually talking about this. Most of them are taking what you learned in layer 1, create your boundaries, demand what you want, and they're taking it to layer 2, which is creating a lot of chaos and a lot harder road ahead of you. So the second layer is learning to hold your frequency when old patterns show up. because you can do every piece of individual work available. And the moment that that specific person walks into your space, your nervous system can instantly revert to exactly who you were when things were at their worst. It's annoying. It's frustrating because you felt so far ahead, and then that nervous system trigger shows up and you feel like you're back at square one. And this is not because you failed. It's because your body has a memory. We have to work on both layers. So why does this reverting happen? Let me paint a little picture for you. Your kids have been at their dad's house for the last few days. You've had time to sleep. You've had time to clean the house. You've done a little journaling. Maybe you had a little social time, but overall, your mood is really good. It's these first glimpses of what the new normal is going to look like, how peaceful your house is, how you have time to enjoy it. You're in a good mood. You're recharged from the time away. You're even starting to find maybe a little humor, maybe a little lightness around the situation. Maybe you're washing the dishes and all of a sudden you just feel this, oh, I understand why this had to happen. Divorce wasn't part of my plan, but I get it now. I get it now because this feels so different. We have all been there. The pickup starts fine, right? You're heading over to get your kids. You're excited to have them back. And then boom, he makes a comment. Maybe he doesn't do exactly as you think that he should. Maybe he didn't walk around the car and bring you their bags. Maybe he just sat in the car while they climbed out. Whatever it is, drop something extra on your plate that you didn't expect. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be as simple as you just see him, you just visually see him, and everything that was released comes flooding back. This is not weakness, you guys. This does not mean you're doing something wrong. This doesn't mean that all the work you've done has failed. This is your nervous system. It has a very specific set of responses to that very specific person that have been created over a very long time. It's like a well-worn path in our brain that our mind could walk at night in the dark without any guidance. We just know it. And because we know it, because we walk it so often, or we did for so many years, it means we can walk it very quickly, or you can virtually run down that path, 0 to 60, almost instantly. You're back in the same set of responses that you used to have when you were married. That environment, the person, the dynamic, it all acts as a trigger that pulls that old pattern forward. I literally envision a path with long grass growing up the side. If you were walking through a field, this is that dirt path that you have worn and you have beat back and forth, trying to get a change out of this person, out of the marriage, out of the relationship. And when you get divorced and you have your own space and you don't see this person every single day and you're not as triggered by them, the grass starts to grow into that path. We kind of forget about it when it's not there because we're building new trails in our adventure. They show up and boom, we can run down that path so fast. One example when I think about this happening that is so annoying, and it still happens today, and it irritates the piss out of me, is I first noticed it in college. When I would leave college, leave California and fly back to my parents' house in Wisconsin, you get into your parents' house and what happens? All of a sudden, I'm like constantly hungry and I'm snacking all day and I'm eating all this shit that I wouldn't normally eat when I was living in California. I defaulted to sweatshirts and jeans, and it's Wisconsin. So lots of cheese curds, not complaining about the cheese curds part, but the environment pulled me into an old version of who I was. And in fact, when I moved from California back to Minnesota for a job, I found myself falling in those same patterns again. Obviously, the weather in the Midwest is very different than California. And all of a sudden, I was reverting to the energy, the frequency, the vibe of the person I had been growing up, the person I had been in high school. And that was not the woman that I was anymore. I had done some very specific work in California to figure out who the hell I was and what I wanted and how I wanted to live. So there was nothing more frustrating than venturing back to an old environment and finding myself pulling out habits that I had retired. And this wasn't something that got triggered. This wasn't about the people that were there. It was just when you put ourselves back in old situations, our mind and our body revert to the way that it's always been. The same thing is happening at pickup or when your ex texts or when you need to interact with them. The environment, the conditions around you, that is the trigger. The solution then is learning about getting ahead of it and owning your frequency, owning your vibration, not falling back into those old patterns. But how do we do this? Because they happen so fast. You have every intention. I know you have every intention when you go to pick up your kids to be neutral, to be respectful, to even, dare I say, be kind, because you know that it helps your kids to see two adults who are able to get along. You don't have to like each other. You don't have to socialize, but being kind, respectful, and helpful to each other is good for them to see. I know that you want that. And if that's your intention, then why does it get in the way? There is a tool that I want you to start to use, and it is called pre-paving. Pre-paving is a concept that we are going to visualize and set our intention of how we're going to show up. Now, we're only in control of one side of the street. We don't know how they're going to show up, but the more we can practice in our mind how we want to show up, the more successful we can be. In fact, I know you've heard about this through Olympic athletes. Wasn't Michael Phelps one of the first ones that talked a lot about visualizing what that swim looks like, and that he gave credit to that work as helping him with the records that he has? So let me share another example outside of divorce. And the reason that I think that this example is so important is because the practice of pre-paving and getting in control of our energy, our frequency, our vibration applies anytime we're interacting with people. And what I would challenge you to do is start to use it in some of the dynamics that are a little bit less charged than your ex, because they are easier to study the ship. They are easier to get a hold of before we tackle the really big challenge, the really long history, the really charged emotions of your divorce. All right. So my story was back in the day, I had a boss who I was really, by the end of my career, not getting along with. I knew that this was not going well. I was frustrated at every single meeting. I could hear it in my tone. I could know that it was showing up on my face, even when I tried to hide it, even just in maybe I was more writing in a notebook or on my phone than actually being present when he was talking. We were just butting heads on everything. And I could see that it was becoming a me problem, because I was the one who was now looking combative, even though in my mind, I felt completely justified in why I was acting the way I was doing. I was tired of redoing PowerPoints for the 50th time. I was frustrated with a restructure when he put me underneath a peer who I had trained because we weren't getting along. I was incredibly over the amount of things that I was retouching, or we weren't following what I was recommending, only to come back to that as the solution years later. So I knew that this was a me problem, even though I could come up with all the reasons that I was justified in being right. I decided to go and do the inner work first, because the reality was that after years of being in this dynamic, things were not changing. And I was just getting more and more and more upset. And I had to really think about, like, why does it matter? You know, I'm being paid to do my work. If I need to redo a PowerPoint and redo it again and redo it again, I'm paid for the work. So what's the real problem? I found that the root of the frustration was I was trying so hard to be able to move some very big programs forward that I just wanted them done and moved forward. I was frustrated because I didn't feel like I had the time to waste on this. We had to get this solution out the door. The clients on the other side needed this. We had a problem to solve and we had the answer, and we just needed to execute it. It was compounded because this was after my divorce. I was single parenting. I didn't have the flexibility to be working long hours at home at night, nor do I think that that's the right answer. Even when you're a salaried employee, you should not be working all day in the office and all night at home trying to figure out what the solution is. So I got to the root of my frustration. I was impatient. I wanted things done. I wanted them off my list. I wanted to be able to move forward because my task list continued to grow and these big projects weren't moving anywhere. I identified what my behaviors were doing to the dynamic. What was the energy that I was already bringing in the room? And if you think about it, entering a very small conference room with somebody who's already pissed off, do you know that they're pissed off before they open their mouth? Yes. Can you see it? Can you feel the energy shift in the room? I knew that that's what I was doing. I knew that even if I didn't say anything, just by how I was feeling was changing the interaction between us. So I wanted to change how I was showing up. And before every single meeting, I did something that I called pre-paving. Pre-paving is a process of setting your energy or your intentions before you walk into a situation. You envision how you want to show up, not controlling what the other person does, but deciding in advance, how do I want to feel? How do I want to act? What do I want to bring to this room? Then you literally visualize it in your mind. I visualized entering the conference room. I visualized where my boss always sat. I visualized staying calm. I visualized having a calm, neutral smile on my face and saying yes. I visualized not stepping into owning the changes personally. Right? When he wants another PowerPoint drafted, it wasn't about me, it was about him. So I visualized all of those pieces. Over time, as I visualized, I could expand a little bit more. In the beginning, I just wanted to remain calm. I wanted to not add to the chaos, and I wanted to get through the meeting without getting even more frustrated. The more I did it, the more I could start to lean into trusting the universe to take some of that control or some of that power. I started to play the what if game. What if we go into this meeting and this is the meeting that he agrees with me? What if this is the meeting that something else shows up, a third alternative, and it surprises and delights me? I opened up the possibility to things shifting outside of what I thought was the right answer. And when we can approach things with curiosity instead of defense, we can be surprised and delighted by things that we probably didn't even see in the moment. So how did each meetings go? Were they perfect just because I pre-paved? No. But each and every meeting, did I get a little bit better? Yes. Did I get more in control of how I wanted to be? Yes. Did I stop outsourcing and letting him affect my day? 100%. So after each meeting, I reviewed. Did I stay calm? How did it go? Where am I feeling frustrated? How can I let that frustration go? What do I want to do differently next time? And most importantly, I celebrated what worked. We are talking about 3 minutes, sometimes when you get good at it, a minute before walking into a meeting, and 2-3 minutes after a meeting. If you leave the meeting room and you're walking down the hall, you can kind of go through what went well, what do I like, how did it go, what would I do differently, what did I learn? We can think through all those pieces very quickly. And the result was that I took my power back. My boss no longer had the power to ruin my day or to make me feel any way that I didn't want to feel. I stopped letting him affect me. I learned how to control my emotions even when they threatened to sweep me away. And it was hard in the beginning because we had so much momentum and history going of being head to head in disagreement on what we needed to do next to solve the problem. It stopped ruining my day. And it was because I decided to change. At the end of the day, did anything switch with my boss? No, he continued to be who he was. But I stopped taking it personally. I stopped letting it spiral. I stopped letting it last longer than it should. I can speak up, speak my piece, share my expectations or my beliefs on how it should go. I can share my boundaries that I am unable to work long hours after, the normal business day, or that I am unable to do a last minute business trip without planning ahead. Sounds much like what we need to do in our divorce. We need to figure out, how do we want to show up? How do we want to interact with this person? What is in the best interest of everybody? And what am I willing to do or not do? So bring that concept into your next child pickup, into the handoff, into the moment that his name shows up on your phone. Pre-paving is not about pretending everything is fine. It was not fine. I still, to this day, am not such a fan of that boss. But it's not toxic positivity. I was not sitting in that room trying to fake it. I was getting real with my feelings, my emotions, what was happening, and what I wanted to create with it. It's about deciding in advance who you're going to be in that interaction so that when old patterns show up, you've already laid down a different track. You're not trying to change him. You're not trying to change your ex. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're adding momentum to the version of you that you have been working so hard to build. So she shows up instead of the version of you that formed inside the worst years of your marriage. It will not be perfect the first times you're doing it, but every single time you do it, you get a little bit further down the path. You react a little bit less. You stay more connected to your heart-centered truth. and it becomes your truth. You can feel it in your body that you're not faking it. You're not brushing it aside. This really is who you are and how you want to interact. So here are your steps. I want you to do this before your next pickup, before the next time you have to text or call your ex, before any interaction where you know the old pattern wants to show up. First, get really still, even for those 2 minutes in your car before you drive over. I just want you to breathe. I want you to arrive in your body. So we're, instead of future tripping over what's about to happen, we're bringing ourselves back to the present moment. In the present moment, through our breath, in our body, we can start to connect with our heart-centered truth. It's here in that stillness that you can feel the woman you are becoming. The second thing I want you to do now is envision the interaction. Do not envision the perfect version where he's absolutely amazing. That's not real. That's not what we're looking to do. We're not trying to envision the problems, but envision the general pieces. You're both going to pull up in the parking lot. Maybe his car's already there. You see the kids in the car. How do you feel in your car? Pull into your spot, right? Smile or wave. Do you envision yourself getting out, or do you stay in the car? Do the kids climb in, or does he walk them over? I want you to envision the general gist of how that interaction goes. The biggest piece in it is, as a new little piece, like you pull into the parking lot, I want you to then envision you. How are you acting? Oh, I'm calm as I pull into the spot. I'm grounded as I get out of the car. I'm neutral as I walk around to his side. Maybe even, dare I say, unbothered when you're doing these things. Visualize yourself being happy to see your kids. How does it feel to get that first hug? Envision you in this interaction, and envision you showing up the way that you want to show up. The next thing I want you to do is ask yourself, how do you want to feel when this is over? And work backwards from that feeling. At the end of today's interaction, I want to feel like I have the ability to let go of any frustrations. That's a valid first step. Maybe the next time you show up and you say, okay, at the end of this interaction, I want to be able to shift quickly into the excitement of talking with my kids instead of ruminating over whatever dumb shit he did. But ask yourself, how do you want to feel when this specific interaction is over? Next thing, remind yourself that growth only feels painful when we fight it. So annoying, but so true. You're not fighting this moment. You're observing, you're learning, you're flowing. I think every time something got difficult or painful, or I really fought change, I reminded myself that I was being invited to grow. I was being invited to learn something else. And the only reason it hurt or was frustrating or bothered me was because I wasn't evolving into the opportunity to grow as fast as I could. I was fighting it. I was fighting learning how to do something different. Go ahead and move forward with your drop off or your pickup or your text, the call, whatever it is. And then after that interaction, review it. Not to pick yourself apart, but to celebrate what held up, what went better than it typically does. What's one thing you want to do a little differently next time? Even looking at how long of that interaction were you allowed to stay connected to your heart-centered truth? How long were you before the old energies, frequencies, interactions pulled you back into something else? Remember, it is progress, not perfection. Every single time you move a little farther, every single time you stay more connected to the woman that you are fighting so hard to become. Every interaction is just data. It's just telling us, how are we doing? How are we doing and where are our opportunities? You're not going to nail it the first time or the fifth time. There will be pickups where you pre-pave and he says one thing and it still gets under your skin. That's not failure. That is work in progress. What you're building is a new default, and defaults take time to install. I'm also going to say it takes choice. There are times right now where I can fall into old habits of really wanting to complain about my ex or detaching. And so when I start to notice that pattern shifting, a little more frustrated or a little bit more short, or what comes up most for me is I read the text and the thing that in my head or out loud is just like, what an idiot. Then I have to be like, oops, hold on, Erica. That's nothing about him. Nothing about him. That is about you. And that helps nobody. So I do the same thing. I pre-pave. I go neutral. I say, why am I frustrated? Why do I care? Why do I want to give him any power over my day? I know that the woman who walks into that parking lot having done her inner work and pre-paved her energy is a completely different woman than the one who shows up running old patterns and unprocessed anger. She is different than the one who gives her power away to her ex or to the divorce. She is stronger because she knows how to truly care for herself and how she feels. And your kids feel that difference even if they cannot name it. Those things outside of you, they might never change. Your boss might always be dumb. Your ex might always be an asshole. The triggers might keep showing up, but the dynamic might stay complicated for a very long time. And you cannot control any of that. But what you can control is whether you choose to engage with it. And yes, it feels impossible in the moment when things are raging. And that is why we do the work before the interactions. I know that you don't want to let your ex steal your happiness anymore. You don't want to waste any more months or years getting over this. You won't let them take your power. You will rise above the pettiness and the reactivity, and you will own the woman that you want to be, even if they never change. That is your freedom. That is your rise up. That is your post-divorce glow up. And this is the level of confidence and heart-led truth that we're working on every single month in The Wild Woman. So if you're struggling and you feel like you just don't have the steadiness yet, this is the work we do each month. Who are you becoming? Who do you want to be? And then what are you ready to let go of so that you can become her? We don't just magically appear on the other side of divorce. We get there one day at a time, one interaction at a time. Every single time we look at, how did I show up? Is that who I want to be? Is that who I'm becoming? Is that truth for me? And I don't think we set out to let the past continue to steal our future, but it does until we learn what it's asking us to do. Most times we wait until the conditions around us change, but that is a long game that leaves you vulnerable. What if it never changes? What if you spend your entire life waiting for it to get easier? What if I was still sitting in those meetings, frustrated at my boss, spiraling, letting it ruin the rest of my day, let it steal the fun or the interactions I would have with my son that night? You are not that woman. You are the woman who handled it all. You got shit done. You fought for your marriage. You fought for your worth. You aren't here listening because you're weak. You're choosing to do the work in some of the most challenging self-development ways that can be asked of you. Learning a new way to be is not easy, and it is the answer if you're done living the way you have been. If you have more days that you're over it versus loving it, you need to make the change. It doesn't just show up one morning. The Wild Woman is that first step. So it can help you and guide you through making those changes. Every single month, you get 3 emails. The first email guides you through a deep reflection on who you're becoming. A week later, I will send a check-in email because we need to stay accountable to where you're going, right? It's a 30-day cycle that we look at. And then you get one final email with a guided healing practice. All you have to do is press play. I will show you how to put the bullshit down for good. And each month, you take one more step forward to become her. Each month, you lock her in more. Each ritual, you become unapologetically you in the journey to become her. And if you really don't like it, you guys, I give you your money back. The link is down below in the show notes, thecrazyexwivesclub.com/wildwoman for more. You could message me on Instagram. You can drop an email. I'm a pretty open book right now to help point you to the solution that you need, because the amount of posts that I read in divorce groups of women still giving their ex the power to own their life post-divorce, it's mind-boggling. That is a choice. That is a place that you no longer have to be. You do not have to sit in the ish, but you do have to decide to make a change. Every single week you show up, every single week you listen, and that is the first step. If you are looking to start moving forward faster, then I invite you to pop over to the website and take a look at the different support programs. All right, my friends, 2 layers of work. Today we talked about the individual work of figuring out, who are you? What do you want? How do you want to be? What does a heart-led version of you look like? And then we looked at that second layer, which is co-creating. What is the energy dynamics, the old energy dynamics that are still at play, and how do we shift that? How do we take one small step every single time we interact with that person to create a new outcome? You will need to work on both. Both will be areas of growth and development for you, and both are what gives you an entirely new chapter. It creates something completely different than what you lived all those years in your marriage. So layer one, find that frequency, do your healing, get clear on who you are. And layer two, learn to hold it when the world shows up. Pre-pave, set your energy, decide in advance. The world will always show up. It'll always threaten to push you out of heart-centered alignment, but you're building the tools to bring yourself back into alignment. You're not doing anything wrong because you reverted. I know that it feels so mind-numbing to be 2 steps ahead and then 1 step back. You're human. And now you have a new tool to help you stay forward focused. Come back to this episode before your next hard interaction. You guys, you have got this. You are powerful women on the other side. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here learning how to hold space for your emotions. Until next week, give yourself a little extra grace. Start to practice pre-paving. We'll be back with another great episode. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.